Ambassador Alina Vasquez had dreamed of this moment since she was a little girl watching the stars from her grandmother's farm in Argentina. For 300 years, humanity had reached out to the cosmos, sending messages of peace and friendship into the endless dark. For 300 years, they had received nothing but silence and rejection. But today, everything changed. She stood in the grand chamber of Nexus Prime, a world made entirely of living crystal that sang with ancient light. Around her, representatives of 847 alien species watched from floating platforms that stretched upward into infinity. Some had scales, others had tentacles, and a few were made of pure energy. They were beautiful and terrifying and wonderful all at once. Behind Alina stood 12,000 humans. They were diplomats and scientists, artists and engineers, teachers and doctors. Each one had been chosen from billions of applicants. Each one represented the best that Earth had to offer. They had trained for decades, learning alien languages and customs, preparing for the moment when humanity would finally take its place among the stars. Hi, Arbiter Zethfrin floated before them. He was an ancient being, consciousness of living plasma held together by magnetic fields that had existed for 10,000 years. When he spoke, his voice resonated through the crystal walls like thunder. Humanity of Earth, Zethvorin announced. The Galactic Council has watched your species for many centuries. We have seen your wars and your cruelty. We have seen your violence and your chaos. Many believed you would never be ready for the stars. Lena felt her heart sink. Were they being rejected again? But then, Zethvorin's plasma form shifted into warmer colors. However, we have also seen your art and your music, your capacity for love and sacrifice, your endless curiosity, and your stubborn hope. After much debate, the Council has decided to grant humanity provisional membership. The human delegation erupted in cheers. Alina felt tears streaming down her face. 300 years of work, of dreaming, of hoping against hope, and finally, they had been accepted. Furthermore, Zethvorin continued, the Council wishes to present humanity with a gift. In the Kepler expanse, there exists a garden world that was terraformed long ago by a species that has since passed into history. This world is now yours. A new home among the stars. Lena could barely breathe. A whole planet. A new Earth. It was more than they had ever dared to hope for. The Council provided transport ships, sleek vessels of silver and light that would carry the human delegation through the wormhole network to their new home. The journey would take only hours instead of the centuries it would take using human technology. As Alina boarded the lead transport, she looked back at the grand chamber one last time. Everything felt like a dream. The good kind of dream. The kind where you wake up smiling. She should have known better. The wormhole transit was strange and beautiful, like falling through a tunnel made of frozen lightning. Alina watched through the viewport as colors that had no names swirled around them. She thought about her grandmother, who had died 10 years ago, and wished the old woman could see this. Then the ships emerged into normal space, and Elena's dream became a nightmare. There was no garden world waiting for them. Instead, they had arrived in a graveyard of dead stars. The Harrow Nebula, it was called, though Alina did not know this yet. All she knew was that the space around them was filled with ships. Thousands of ships. Ships that looked like they had been grown rather than built, covered in spines and scales and things that might have been eyes. The Vexthani. Alina had heard stories about them during her training. Every species in the galaxy feared the hive. They were ancient predators who consumed entire civilizations. They could not be reasoned with. They could not be bargained with. They existed only to hunt and feed and spread, and humanity had just been delivered directly to them. Understanding hit Alina like a physical blow. The Council had not accepted humanity. The Council had sold them. 12,000 innocent people offered as a sacrifice to buy peace from monsters. Around her, the other humans were screaming and crying and praying. Some were frozen in shock. Others were desperately trying to contact Earth, but the wormhole had closed behind them. They were alone, unarmed, and surrounded by death. A transmission crackled through the ship's speakers. The voice that spoke was wet and clicking like bones being crushed. "Little humans," the voice said. "I am Scrath the Hollower. I have consumed 107 species. I have ended civilizations older than your sun. You have been given to us as tribute. Do not be afraid. Fear is unnecessary. You are already dead." Alina looked at her people. She saw their terror. She saw their despair, and something inside her shifted. She had spent her entire life preparing for this moment. For first contact with alien species, she had trained to be diplomatic, to be peaceful, to represent the best of humanity. But humanity was not just peace and art and music. Humanity was also survival. Humanity was also stubbornness. Humanity was also the refusal to go quietly into the dark. Alina walked to the communications panel. Her hands were steady. Her voice, when she spoke, was calm. "Scrath the Hollower," she said. "I am Ambassador Alina Vasquez of Earth. I have a message for you and for the Galactic Council that sent us here." She paused. And then she did something that had never happened in all of Scrath's long existence. She laughed. It was not a nervous laugh or a crazy laugh. It was the laugh of someone who had just understood a joke that no one else could see. "You think you have captured prey," Alina said. "You think you have been given a gift? But you are wrong. The Council did not give you a tribute. They gave you a warning. And they were too stupid to understand it themselves." Groth's voice came back, confused and angry. "You are unarmed. You are weak. You are nothing. You are human," Alina replied. "And you have made a terrible mistake." She closed the channel and turned to her people. The fear was still there, but now there was something else too. A spark. A question. "We are probably going to die here," Alina told them honestly. "But we are not going to die like lambs. We are going to die like humans. And before we go, we are going to make sure the entire galaxy knows what the Council did. We are going to make sure Earth knows. And we are going to hurt these monsters so badly that they will remember us forever." She smiled, and it was not a nice smile. "Who is with me?" The answer came as a roar from 12,000 human throats. And somewhere in the dark, Scrath the Hollower felt something cold crawl down his spine. Something he had not felt in 1,000 years. Fear, SK Wrath, the Hollower, had conquered more worlds than he could remember. He had broken species that built empires across galaxies. He had fed on creatures of pure energy and beings that existed in 11 dimensions. Nothing surprised him anymore, until today, the human female was laughing at him. Her ships had no weapons. Her people had no armor. They were soft and fragile and completely helpless. And she was laughing. "You misunderstand your situation," Scrath transmitted, his clicking voice filled with ancient menace. "I have dissected thousands of species. I know exactly how much pain each one can endure before death. Humans, I am told, are remarkably sensitive to pain. This will be educational." Ambassador Alina Vasquez smiled into the camera. "You are absolutely right. We are soft. We are fragile. We feel pain very deeply. But here is something the Council did not tell you about humans, Scrath. We do not stop. We do not surrender. And when we are hurt, we do not run away. We run toward the thing that hurt us, and we tear it apart with our bare hands if we have to." She paused. "You should have done your research." Before Scrath could respond, Alina activated a device hidden in her diplomatic pouch. It was small, no bigger than her thumb. And it contained technology that the Galactic Council did not know humanity possessed. A quantum-entangled transmitter. The Council believed humans were primitive. They believed humanity had only developed basic space travel and simple computers. They were wrong. For 50 years, ever since humanity first detected signals from beyond the solar system, Earth's greatest minds had been working in secret. They had studied every scrap of alien technology they could find. They had built things in hidden laboratories on the dark side of the moon. They had prepared for the day when they would finally meet their neighbors among the stars. And they had prepared for betrayal. The transmitter sent a data package across the impossible distance between the Harrow Nebula and Earth. It traveled not through space, but through the quantum foam that connected all things in the universe. The message arrived on Earth in less than 1 second. Elena's message was simple and brutal. This is Ambassador Elena Vasquez. The Galactic Council has betrayed humanity. They have sold us to the Vextani Hive. We are 12,000 civilians with no weapons and no hope of rescue. We will not survive, but we will fight. We will buy you as much time as we can. Use it. She attached all the evidence. The recordings of their trial in the Grand Chamber, the coordinates of the Harrow Nebula, the data on the Hive Fleet, everything. Show them why they should have feared us, Elena continued. Show them what happens when you betray humanity. We are not just a species of artists and dreamers. We are survivors. We are fighters. We are the descendants of people who crossed frozen wastelands and burning deserts, who survived plagues and wars and disasters that should have ended us 100 times over. We did not come this far to die quietly in the dark. She took a breath. I love you all. Earth forever. The message ended. On Earth. It was 3:47 in the morning in New Geneva, and the quantum receiver activated in the United Earth Parliament building. Alarms began to ring. Within minutes, the Prime Minister was awakened. Within an hour, every leader on the planet was assembled in an emergency session. They watched. Elena's message in complete silence. Admiral James Okonkwo sat in the front row. He was 94 years old, a hero of the Martian crisis. And he had spent his entire career preparing for a war that he hoped would never come. His face showed no emotion as he watched the recording, but his hands gripped the armrests of his chair until his knuckles turned white. When the message ended, the chamber erupted in chaos. Some leaders were crying. Others were shouting. A few were calling for immediate surrender to the Council, hoping to save whatever remained of human civilization. Admiral Okonkwo stood up. His voice cut through the noise like a knife. How long to reach the Harrow Nebula with everything we have? General Chen, the head of military operations, shook her head. Sir, the wormhole network is controlled by the Council. They will never allow us to use it for military purposes. And even if we could, we would be traveling through territory controlled by species loyal to the Council. We would be destroyed before we got halfway there. I did not ask about the wormhole network, Okonkwo said. His voice was ice. I asked how long with everything we have. General Chen hesitated. Sir, you cannot mean... The Prometheus fleet is still experimental. The drives have never been tested at full capacity. The ships were built in secret. If we reveal them now, the Council will know we have been deceiving them for 50 years. Answer the question, General. Chen swallowed. 18 months at maximum burn. Through open space, outside Council territory, it would require all of our fuel reserves and push the crews to their absolute limits. Many might not survive the journey. Okonkwo nodded slowly. Then we leave in 6 hours. The chamber fell silent. The Prime Minister said carefully, even if we reach the Harrow Nebula, we will be facing the Vextani Hive. They have conquered 1,000 worlds. Our fleet is untested. Okonkwo turned to face the assembled leaders. His eyes were cold and hard and absolutely certain. Let me tell you what I know about the Hive, he said. They are predators. They have never faced prey that fights back. They have never faced a species that refuses to die. They have never faced humans. He began to walk toward the exit. 18 months. That is how long Ambassador Vasquez and 12,000 of our people need to survive. I intend to be there when that time is up. Anyone who wants to come with me, report to the lunar shipyards by dawn. He paused at the door. And someone tell the Council that humanity has received their message. Now they are going to receive ours. Back in the Harrow Nebula, Elena did not know if her transmission had been received. She had to believe it had. She had to believe that Earth would come. In the meantime, she had work to do. She gathered her people in the cargo hold of the lead transport ship. 12,000 faces looked back at her, filled with fear and confusion and the desperate need to believe in something. We have no weapons, Elena told them. We have no warships. We have no training for combat. But we have something the hive has never encountered before. We have human ingenuity. She pointed to the engineers. You built machines that took us to Mars and beyond. Now I need you to build weapons from whatever we have on these ships. She pointed to the scientists. You understand chemistry and biology and physics? Find the hive's weaknesses. Find ways to hurt them. She pointed to everyone else. You are diplomats and artists and teachers. You know how to communicate, how to inspire, how to think creatively. Find ways to survive. Find ways to hide. Find ways to make them afraid of us. She looked at them all, and her voice grew soft but strong. We may die here. I will not lie to you about that. But if we die, we will die fighting. We will die proving that humans are not prey. And we will make them remember our names for 1,000 years. Outside the viewport, the hive ships began to move closer. The hunt was about to begin. But the hunters did not know. They had become the hunted. 6 months had passed since the betrayal. And the humans should have been dead long ago. Scrath the Hollower stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at reports that made no sense. His fleet had lost 47 ships. Not to enemy warships. Not to planetary defense systems. 2 unarmed civilians in diplomatic transports. It was impossible. And yet, it was happening. The humans called it the Long Dark. 18 months of survival in a graveyard of dead stars. Hunted by the most feared predators in the galaxy. They had no training for this. They had no weapons designed for war. All they had was their minds, their refusal to give up. And it turned out that was enough. Dr. Marcus Chen had been a xenobiologist before the betrayal. His job had been to study alien life forms and understand how they functioned. Now he used that knowledge to find ways to kill them. He discovered that the Vexthani communicated through chemical signals in the air, like ants or bees. Their warriors could sense each other's emotions and coordinate their attacks without speaking. It made them deadly hunters. It also made them vulnerable. Marcus worked for 3 weeks in a makeshift laboratory, using medical supplies and food preservatives from the transport ships. He created a synthetic version of the hive's chemical language. When released in an enclosed space, told every Vexthani warrior that every other warrior was an enemy. The first test was on a hive patrol ship that had captured one of the human vessels. The hive warriors boarded the ship expecting to find easy prey. Instead, they found Marcus's chemical weapon waiting in the ventilation system. 40 minutes later, there were no living Vexthani on the ship. They had torn each other apart with their own claws. Lieutenant Yuki Tanaka had been a shuttle pilot. She had spent 20 years flying cargo ships between Earth and Mars, a job she had loved for its peace and simplicity. Now she flew a damaged transport held together with tape and prayers, leading hive fighters into asteroid fields where their larger ships could not follow. She was very good at it. The hive learned to fear the small human vessels that appeared from nowhere, struck fast, and vanished into the rocks before they could respond. They called Yuki the Ghost. Her name was spoken in whispers among the hive warriors. On the 207th day, Yuki made her final flight. Her ship was too damaged to escape. The hive carrier was too close. She had a choice: surrender and be dissected alive, or do one last thing for her people. She chose the second option. YUK. I flew her transport directly into the carrier's launch bay at full speed. The explosion killed 4,000 hive warriors and destroyed half the carrier's weapons. Systems. Her last transmission was broadcast to every human. Survivor in the nebula, tell my daughter I flew into the sun. Tell her I was not afraid. Elena Vasquez wept when she heard the message. Then she dried her tears and went back to planning the next attack. The humans had divided themselves into small groups scattered across the nebula. They hid and captured hive vessels, in hollowed-out asteroids, in the wreckage of ancient ships that drifted through the void. They struck when the hive least expected it, then vanished before reinforcements could arrive. They used everything as a weapon. Medical scanners became electromagnetic bombs that disabled hive electronics. Cafeteria supplies became poison gas. Escape pods filled with reactor coolant became missiles that could cripple a warship, and they sent messages. Not to Earth, because they could not reach Earth. But to the rest of the galaxy, Alina recorded a new transmission every week. She showed the Council's betrayal. She showed the Hive's atrocities. And she showed what humans did when they had nothing left to lose. "The Council calls us primitives," Alina said in one broadcast. "They say we are too aggressive, too violent, too dangerous for galactic civilization." They were right about all of it. We are aggressive. We are violent. We are dangerous. And now we are angry. Every species watching this should ask themselves a simple question. If this is what humans do when they are helpless and afraid, what will they do when they have real weapons? The broadcast spread through the galaxy like fire. Species that had been conquered by the Council or oppressed by the Hive began to whisper a new word. A human word: resistance. On the 300th day, the humans suffered their worst defeat. A Hive ambush caught 3 of their hiding places at once. 2,000 humans died in a single day. Alina gathered the survivors. There were only 4,000 left. They were starving and exhausted and running out of supplies. Many had stopped believing that Earth would ever come. "I know you are tired," Alina told them. "I know you are afraid. I know some of you have given up hope, but I need you to hold on a little longer. Earth is coming. I believe that with every part of my soul. Our people are crossing the impossible distance between here and home, and they are bringing fire and fury with them." She looked at the faces around her. So many had been lost. So many more would be lost before this was over. "Every day we survive is a victory," she said. "Every Hive ship, W. Humans do not give up. Hold on, fight, survive. Our people are coming." On the bridge of his flagship, Scrath, the Hollower received another casualty report. He had lost 12% of his fleet to creatures without weapons or training. His warriors were starting to hesitate before boarding human vessels, wondering what trap waited for them this time. For the first time in 1,000 years, Scrath did not know what to do. "What are they?" his lieutenant asked, staring at the reports in disbelief. Scrath had no answer. He had consumed species that built weapons that could crack planets. He had destroyed civilizations that had existed for millions of years. But he had never faced anything like this. Humans were not stronger than the Hive. They were not faster, or smarter, or more advanced. But they had something that Scrath had never encountered before. They simply would not stop, no matter how many he killed. The survivors kept fighting. No matter how hopeless their situation, they kept planning and attacking and refusing to accept defeat. It was like fighting a force of nature. It's like trying to stop a river by killing individual drops of water. Scrath looked out at the nebula, where tiny human vessels darted between the asteroids, still hunting, still fighting, still refusing to die, and he realized that he was afraid of them, not because they could defeat him. They could not. His fleet was vast and powerful, and eventually he would find and kill every last human in the nebula. But because he understood now what Earth send to avenge them. And for the first time in his long existence, Scrath the Hollower wished he had refused the Council's gift. Day 540-7, Alina. Vasquez sat in the command center of a captured Hive ship, surrounded by the smell of alien blood and the hum of machines she barely understood. Around her, the last survivors of humanity's diplomatic mission worked at stations they had taught themselves to operate. There were only 2,847 humans left. They were scattered across 17 captured vessels and 24 asteroid hideouts throughout the Harrow Nebula. They survived on recycled air, synthetic food made from Hive biomass, and sheer stubbornness. Many were sick. All were exhausted. Some had stopped speaking, their minds broken by 18 months of constant fear. Alina looked at the star chart and did the math she did every day. Earth was coming. She had to believe that. But even if the fleet had left immediately after receiving her message, even if they had traveled at speeds that should have torn their ships apart, they would not arrive for at least another few weeks. She was not sure they could last that long. A young man named David approached her station. He had been a music teacher before the betrayal. Now he was missing an arm and walked with a limp from injuries he had received during a Hive boarding action. "Ambassador," He said quietly. The scouts report a large hive formation moving toward the outer asteroids. They know where Group 7 is hiding. We need to evacuate them. Lena closed her eyes. Group 7 had 43 people, including a dozen children who had been traveling with their diplomat parents. The evacuation would require exposing their ships to hive detection. How many will we lose? She asked. David hesitated. Best case, we save 30. Worst case, he did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. Alina was about to give the order when something happened that she would remember for the rest of her life. The sky burned through the viewport. She saw a tear appear in the fabric of space itself. It was not a wormhole, not the clean transit portals that the Council used. This was something else. Something violent. Something that looked like reality itself was being forced open by sheer power. And through that tear came a ship. It was black and silver and bristling with weapons that made hive warships look like children's toys. Its design was brutal and efficient, built for one purpose and one purpose only: war. On its hull, painted in letters that could be seen across 1,000 kilometers, was a name: Use Defiance. Behind the Defiance came another ship, and another, the Wrath of Terra. Never again. Humanity's vengeance. Remember Earth? Names that spoke of fury and grief and an anger that had crossed the impossible distance between stars. 300 warships emerged from the Terran space, and each one was larger and more powerful than anything the galaxy had ever seen from humanity. Admiral James Okonkwo's face appeared on every screen in the nebula. He was old and tired, and his eyes held the weight of 18 months of brutal travel. Many of his crew had died during the journey, their bodies unable to withstand the acceleration and stress. But he was here. He had arrived. Ambassador Vasquez, Okonkwo said, his voice rough with emotion. Your message was received. Earth remembers, and Earth has answered. Lena could not speak. She was crying too hard. Around her, humans were screaming and cheering and embracing each other. Some fell to their knees. Others just stared at the fleet with expressions of pure disbelief. They had survived. Against all odds, against all reason. They had survived long enough for rescue to arrive. The Vexthani. Hive had never faced a proper human war fleet before. They had studied humanity through the lens of the Council's reports, which described humans as a primitive species, barely capable of interplanetary travel. They expected to face the same soft, helpless creatures they had been hunting for 18 months. They were wrong. The first wave of hive ships attacked the human fleet with confidence born of 10,000 years of victories. They outnumbered the humans 3-1. Their ships were proven in countless battles. Their warriors were the most feared predators in the galaxy. The battle lasted 6 hours. Human ships did not move like other vessels. They accelerated at rates that would have killed any normal species. Their crews protected by technology the Council had never seen. Human weapons were not elegant or sophisticated. They were brutal and efficient, designed by a civilization that had spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of killing each other. Plasma. Cannons that could melt through hive armor like paper. Missile swarms that overwhelmed point defense systems. Boarding parties of Marines in powered armor who tore through hive warriors with weapons that fired. Projectiles at a fraction of the speed of light. And the humans fought with something the hive had never encountered before. Rage. For 18 months, they had watched from Earth as their people died in the Harrow Nebula. They had received Elena's broadcasts, seen the faces of the fallen, heard the names of the dead. They had traveled across the impossible dark for half a year, pushing their bodies beyond all limits, driven by a fury that would not be denied. Now they had finally arrived. And they were not interested in mercy. Scrath. The Hollower watched his fleet being systematically destroyed and knew that he had made a terrible mistake. These were not the soft creatures the Council had described. These were predators. Predators who had been hurt and humiliated and forced to watch their people die. Predators who had come for revenge. Retreat Scrath ordered, something he had never done in 1,000 years of conquest. All ships, retreat. It was too late. The human fleet had encircled the Hive Armada with a precision that spoke of long planning. There was nowhere to run. Scrath's flagship, the pride of the Hive, was surrounded by human warships that moved through space like wolves circling wounded prey. When the battle ended, 70% of the Vexini fleet was destroyed. The rest had surrendered. Something Hive warriors had never done and recorded. History, and Scrath the Hollower was captured alive. The first Hive commander in galactic history. To be taken prisoner, a shuttle from the Defiance docked. With the captured Hive ship where Elena had been sheltering, Admiral Okonkwo walked through the airlock slowly, his old bones aching from the long journey. Behind him came a medical team ready to treat the survivors. He found Elena standing in the cargo bay, surrounded by the 2,847 humans who had survived the long dark. She was thin and scarred, and her eyes held shadows that would never fully fade. But she was alive. "Admiral," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "You came." Okonkwo took her hands in his. "We were always coming, Ambassador. From the moment we received your message, nothing in this universe could have stopped us." Elena nodded slowly. Then she looked past him, through the viewport, at the burning wreckage of the Hive fleet. "It is not over," she said. Okonkwo followed her gaze. "I know. The Hive was only the weapon. The Council was the one who pointed it at us." Elena turned back to him, and despite everything she had suffered, there was steel in her eyes. "Then let us go and have a conversation with the Council." Okonkwo smiled. It was not a kind smile. "I was hoping you would say that." And across the galaxy, on the crystal world of Nexus Prime, High Arbiter Zethvorin watched the battle footage and felt his plasma form flicker with something very much like terror. The humans were supposed to die. They were primitives. They were supposed to die, but they had not died. They had survived. And now they were coming for him. 3 months after the Battle of Haro Nebula, the human fleet arrived at Nexus Prime. They did not come through the wormhole network. The Council had closed every gate, cut every connection, sealed every path that led to their crystal world. They believed that would stop the humans. They were wrong. The fleet crossed the distance through open space. Traveling routes that should have taken decades, they passed through territories controlled by species loyal to the Council, and not one of those species tried to stop them. Some even provided fuel and supplies, their populations inspired by Elena's broadcasts from the long dark. The galaxy was watching, and the galaxy was beginning to understand that something fundamental had changed. The Council's defense fleet assembled to protect Nexus Prime. 2,000 warships from 50 different species, the largest armada ever gathered in one place. They had been preparing for months, building new weapons, training new crews, telling themselves that the human victory against the Hive had been a fluke. Admiral Okonkwo looked at the assembled fleet from the bridge of the Defiance. His 300 ships were outnumbered more than 6 to 1. By any reasonable calculation, this should have been a hopeless battle. He smiled. "Open a channel," he said. "All frequencies. I want every ship in that fleet to hear this, and I want every planet in the galaxy to hear it too." His communications officer complied. A moment later, Okonkwo's voice echoed across the stars. "Attention, Defense Fleet of the Galactic Council. I am Admiral James Okonkwo of the United Earth Navy. I am not here to conquer you. I am not here to destroy you. I am here to deliver a message and collect a debt." He paused, letting his words sink in. 18 months ago. Your council sold 12,000 innocent humans to the Vextani Hive. They were diplomats and scientists, artists and teachers, children and elders. They came in peace and friendship, and your council rewarded them with betrayal and death. His voice grew colder. The 12 members of the High Arbiter Council who voted for this atrocity have 1 hour to surrender themselves to my fleet. If they do not, I will demonstrate what happens when humans go to war. And unlike the Hive, We will not stop. We will not tire. We will not forget. We will hunt every single one of you, across every star in every galaxy until the heat death of the universe if we must. Looked at the clock on his display. You have 59 minutes and 42 seconds remaining. Choose wisely. On Nexus Prime, the council chamber erupted in chaos. Some argued for war. Surely 2,000 ships could defeat 300, no matter how advanced. The humans were bluffing. They had to be bluffing. Then the humans released the footage. Not from the battle at Harrow Nebula. That footage had already spread across the galaxy. This was different. This was from afterward. It showed human soldiers moving through the corridors of Scrath's flagship. They were methodical and precise, clearing room after room, hunting down every hive warrior who had survived the battle. They showed no mercy. They offered no quarter. They simply killed, with a cold efficiency that made even hardened warriors shudder. And then they showed Scrath, the Hollower, the most feared predator in the galaxy, the commander who had conquered 1,000 worlds, the monster who had never been captured or defeated in 10,000 years. He was broken. The human interrogators had not used violence or torture. They had simply talked to him. For weeks they had talked to him, asked him questions, learned his secrets, mapped his fears. And by the end, Scrath was a shattered thing that whispered in corners and flinched at shadows. The council watched this footage and understood. Finally, what they were dealing with. 40-3 minutes into the deadline. High Arbiter Zethforin and 11 other council members were transported to the human flagship ambassador, Alina Vasquez. Met them in the landing bay. She walked slowly. Still healing from her 18 months in hell, her body was thin and scarred, and she needed a cane to support herself. But her eyes were clear and cold, and when she looked at the council members, there was no fear in her face, only judgment.
Ow!
You sold us to monsters, she said simply. You thought we were weak because we sought peace. You thought we were foolish because we extended trust. You thought we would die quietly and teach the galaxy a lesson about the cost of being human. She stepped closer to Zethforin, close enough to see her reflection in his containment field. You were wrong about everything. Zethforin's plasma form shifted nervously. What will you do to us? Torture? Execution? Whatever you do, it will prove to the galaxy that humans are the monsters, not us. Alina was silent for a long moment. The entire galaxy was watching. Through the cameras broadcasting this moment. Live. Then she spoke. We are going to show you. Mercy. The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. Not because you deserve it, Alina continued. You do not. You deserve everything we could do to you, and more. But mercy is not about what you deserve. It is about what we choose to be. She turned away from him, addressing the cameras directly. The Galactic Council sold 12,000 of my people to be slaughtered. They did it because they thought we were weak. They did it because they thought no one would stop them. They did it because they believe that power gives them the right to do whatever they want. Her voice grew stronger. They were wrong. Power does not give you rights. Power gives you responsibilities. And when you fail those responsibilities, when you betray the innocent and sacrifice the helpless, you must answer for it. She turned back to Zethforin. You will stand trial. Not a human trial, but a trial judged by representatives of every species you have wronged over the centuries. You will answer for every crime, not just the ones against humanity, and you will live long enough to watch what happens next. Zethforin asked, his voice barely a whisper. Alina smiled, and for the first time in 18 months, it was a real smile. We rebuild the council. The right way. A council based on justice and equality, not power and fear. A council where every species has a voice, not just the strong ones. A council that protects the weak instead of sacrificing them. She leaned close to Zethforin, close enough to whisper. And this time, humanity is not asking for a seat at the table. This time, we are building the table. And anyone who thinks about betraying us again will remember this moment. They will remember what happened to the hive. They will remember what happened to you. And they will ask themselves one simple question. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Is it worth it? She turned and walked away, leaving the former masters of the galaxy in chains behind her. Outside, 300 human warships hung in the void, patient and watchful. And across the galaxy, 1,000 species who had been dismissed and oppressed and conquered looked up at the stars with new hope. The humans had come. The humans had survived. The humans had won. But more importantly, the humans had chosen mercy when they could have chosen destruction. They had offered justice when they could have offered revenge. They had built something new when they could have simply torn everything down. Admiral Conqua stood beside Alina on the observation deck. Watching the sun set over the crystal spires of Nexus Prime could have demanded their deaths, he said quietly. No one would have blamed you, Alina nodded slowly. I know, and part of me wanted to. After everything they did to us, part of me wanted to watch them burn. She turned to face him. But that is not who we are. That is not who I want us to be. We have shown the galaxy that humans can fight. Now we need to show them that we can lead, that we can forgive, that we can build something better than what came before. Okonkwo considered this for a long moment. It will not be easy, he said. There are species out there who will never trust us, who will see our mercy as weakness and try to take advantage. Lena laughed softly. Then we will remind them of the Harrow Nebula. We will remind them of what happens when humans are pushed too far. We will be kind and fair and just, but we will never be weak. And we will never, ever forget. She looked out at the stars, at the galaxy that had tried to destroy her people and had failed. We are humanity, she said. We do not die easily. And we never stop fighting for what is right. In the distance, the lights of 1,000 ships blinked in the darkness. Human ships and alien ships. Beginning the long work of building a new future, the galaxy would never be the same. And that was exactly how it should be.